Hey everyone, I'm Anna and I'm the studio head for Valorant, and I'm here to chat a bit about player behavior in the game. Since launching Val, especially with the addition of voice comms, we've known that fighting in-game harassment was going to be both something we needed to prioritize and also would be one of the most challenging issues that we would face.
Who is this for? What Valorant players are asking for this? Because judging by the dislike ratio, the comments on this video, and the low view count relative to your other videos, it seems like pretty much everyone hates this, and any reasonable person would just mute players they don't like.
I've spent the last couple of weeks reviewing player logs, looking at penalty escalation paths, discussing player behavior philosophies, seeing where they're working, and where we absolutely need to do better.
Penalty escalation paths. Player behavior philosophy. Now I'm certain this is bullshit that no one's asking for, because the only reason to use the human resources language here, instead of speaking in a way that's easy to understand, is to try and hide what you're doing. Using euphemisms and being unspecific is the tactic of liars.
It's not the first time I've had to do this. It will not be the last. It's important work, but it's not always easy work. I'm a human and a parent and a caregiver and a team lead, and in almost every aspect of my life, I feel this deep responsibility to protect people.
Protect them from what? What do you consider bad player behavior philosophy, and what sort of penalty escalation paths are you taking? Because right now you're just talking, and you haven't really shown us any evidence of how big of a problem in-game harassment is, or given us any specific examples of what counts as bad behavior. Nor have you gone over how Valorant compares to other online games. So anyway, this is Anna Donlin, the head of Valorant Studios, who oversees a tactical hero shooter that was released during the COVID lockdowns. Several months ago, she was the presenter in this incredibly unpopular video called Keeping Our Community Healthy that discusses further crackdowns on hate speech from Riot Games, the people who make Valorant. So I thought, what an opportunity to check up on the state of affairs of online video game censorship, as everyone forgets the sticks and stones metaphor that my generation was taught as kids. Let's continue.
But at the end of the day, there are still some people in this world who want to take out their insecurity or their bad day or their hate or their whatever on some stranger through their computer screen.
Or you're in a ranked match and they're mad at you because you caused them to lose. You know, like general behavior that would occur in any real-life sports. But seriously, how commonly are people being deeply scarred over mean words on the internet? How do you know it's not mostly people who are not actually hurt but are reporting in retaliation because they couldn't think of a good comeback? Now, I get that sometimes there are threats and those should not be allowed, but I've played online games my entire life and I cannot think of a single situation where I thought it was necessary to hit the report button because I was genuinely upset by something another player said. This can't be that common, particularly considering the fact that you can just mute people you don't like.
But I also want to make sure that I say this out loud. We have no room for these types of behavior in our game or in our community.
I mean, what kind of behaviors are you talking about? You have yet to be specific about any complaint ticket that was received or given any specific examples of a behavior that's not allowed, which makes me think that you're actually mostly censoring behavior that would be very unpopular to censor.
Valorant is a team game. It's better played as a team. The strats are better. All of it's better. When you tell someone to just mute comms to avoid harassment, you are essentially putting the harassed person in a position to not communicate, to compromise how they want to play the game to accommodate you. Muting is a tool for people who choose to use it, not something that is there to justify bad behaviors.
Actually, harassment is exactly what muting is for. The main reason you mute people is because they're being annoying. And I mean, tell me that you don't play team games without telling me that you don't play team games. Most of these games you can solo queue up to high ranks without ever even talking to anyone. In fact, in games such as League of Legends, not muting your teammates can be a detriment. So all this kind of begs the question of who is this person speaking and what are her qualifications to determine what players want? Let's see. I found this Wall Street Journal article and wow, it looks like Anna has actually lost a ton of weight since 2020. That's pretty impressive. Outside of that, there's nothing too interesting about this article other than the fact that it points out that Valorant is owned by China. Researching further, it looks like Anna worked on a ton of terrible games until she worked on Call of Duty as a producer. Though just because you produce the game doesn't mean you actually play it to any significant extent. Then in 2015, she joined Riot and became a producer for League of Legends cosmetic content and in-game events. Great, so she's responsible for the overpriced skins.
Just before Valorant, I was a senior producer on League of Legends. I was running the entire personalization department, which is things like skins and events. The Valorant team, they were going through some leadership changes. They really needed a producer who could come on board and really see how to take a game from a very advanced prototype to something that you could actually put into players' hands and be successful.
Is she responsible for the DEI haircut in Valorant too? The studio saw that Killmonger haircut in Black Panther and just ran wild with it. The last paragraph of her Riot Games profile says, Anna is a strong champion of women and marginalized genders. Marginalized genders? So both men and women are marginalized? And finally, I saw this article reacting to a tweet that Anna made saying that she doesn't play solo queue, which is essentially admitting that she doesn't engage with the experience of the average player of her own game. So she has no idea how easy it is to mute annoying players when you aren't click farming for your Twitter account. They act like men never encounter annoying or angry players. We just hit the mute button and move on instead of crying about it on Twitter. Anyway, let's get back to the censorship video.
Competitive games need to have room for banter. We believe this.
Yes, but it's room for safe and non-offensive banter, right? The kind of banter that you would expect people to have at a corporate job where everyone's worried that they'll be reported to HR.
And I do understand the fear that we will sanitize gaming by over-addressing these issues. We have no interest in doing that. That's not what we're talking about here.
Gee, why would players fear that?
But we do believe that a person should not be in a position to have to grow a thicker skin or whatever other unhelpful suggestions have been thrown out there just to avoid threats of violence or literal hate speech.
Wow, those are two incredibly different things being roped in together. Do you see why people don't trust you when you say that you won't over-sanitize the game? In one category, we have stuff like threats, doxing, and stalking, which should be banned. And in the other category, we have things that could be as benign as mean words. These days, lots of big gaming companies have a terrible track record of defining exactly what hate speech is, and plenty of said gaming companies love to rope people who are simply being mean in with violent radicals when the company is doing something they know is unpopular.
It's become an industry apparatus. Instead of engaging with player criticism in good faith, they've developed an overused playbook: gaslight, deflect, and vilify. When players were pushing back against The Last of Us Part 2, they were told that their criticism wasn't valid. They were lumped in with some of the worst people online, the doxers, the threats, the actual extremists. Instead of addressing real concerns, the character assassinations, the forced narrative shifts, the retcons that broke player immersion, the conversation was hijacked by something else entirely. It was never about why players rejected the game. It was about blaming the audience for not embracing progress.
So I did some research to find out what types of things are considered hate speech by the Valorant team, and I found this article titled, Be on Your Best Behavior. The subsection titled Unsportsmanlike Conduct details some of the types of speech that can get you banned. Number 1, insulting, threatening, harassing, or offensive language. Okay, at least some of those should be banned. Number 2, abusive language targeted at players based on their performance or otherwise. You've got to be kidding me. They'll ban you for saying other players suck at the game. Can someone get Ludwig, please? I feel like he should see this.
I'm cool with people being mean because I am bad or do something dumb. I'm not cool with people being mean because I have a trait that I cannot change about myself.
Remember 2 or 3 years ago when I said that all these dumb censorship campaigns would lead to companies over-censoring things? And Ludwig and Hassan made videos saying that that wouldn't happen? Well, here it is. Someone please go get those two to take a break from showing off their dress collection and have them look at this conduct page from Valorant. Valorant is censoring behavior that both of them said was okay.
The vast majority of the time when someone says something out of line and gets reprimanded, they learn as a result of our feedback systems. They keep playing, they rarely repeat offend.
All the more evidence that these aren't actually abusive players. Abusive people will re-offend despite punishment. This is just over censorship that is catching a lot of regular players in the crossfire. This commenter says, I've actually stopped communicating with teammates altogether since I'm expecting to get reported for something minor, and I don't expect communication to matter. Tell me, Anna, why should this player have to compromise how he wants to play the game to accommodate a bunch of Karens? I mean, God forbid you get banned for hate speech because you told a player to put a battery in their smoke detector.
I've heard all kinds of sounds through my headset, but one in particular is annoying and troublesome. The sound I'm talking about is best described as a chirp, no doubt emanating from a smoke detector, desperately signaling for a change of batteries.
If you really have such thin skin or are so poorly socially adjusted that you can't banter or handle a few mean words, then there are plenty of single-player games out there for you to enjoy. And again, who asked for this? It seems like most of the players are asking for everything but this. Can you guys put this much effort into solving the smurfing problem? There are creators playing on their Smurf accounts with zero consequence. For those of you who don't know, smurfing is when a really good player makes a new account so he can queue with a bunch of beginners. I have to say that outside of cheating, I don't think there's anything more annoying than Smurf accounts that make it impossible for new players to enjoy the game without having to spend 100 hours practicing an aim lab first. But actually, the most requested thing from players seems to be a replay function that the Valorant team has denied them for multiple years, to the extent that a small YouTuber went viral for a passive-aggressive video showing them how easy it would be for a single coder to make a replay system function in just a few hours of work.
Fans have been requesting for a replay feature for years. It would be helpful to see the mistakes you made, catch cheaters, show friends a cool clip, or even for content creators to make videos. That is why I made a replay system to prove that Riot Games is lazy. If I can do this in a couple hours with almost no scripting experience, you could easily do this with hundreds of employees given almost 4 years.
Now, I'm not a coder, so I don't know the specifics of this, but I can imagine that after this being requested for multiple years, they could have figured something out. Actually, I believe it still hasn't been released yet, but I'm sure they could have coded this by now if they spent less time making expensive skins.
Riot Games, you add dog crap gun skins that are overpriced, you keep reworking agents that don't need it, you add literal skid marks to this menu that you call the Battle Pass, remove game modes that were actually fun, content creators are losing interest in your game, you gave the sack to a bunch of employees who probably didn't deserve it, but guess what guys, we got a new gun! It's just a slightly changed Marshall. There's already a sniping problem in this game. Who actually asked for this?
Right. I've played enough online games to know that there are issues that are far more pressing than what people say in online chat, yet fixing those things seems to be second to working on loot boxes, selling skins that cost more than a lot of entire video games cost, and working on the new Battle Pass. I mean, sure, hate speech is bad, but selling gambling to children or using psychological tricks to siphon money from minors who are too young to understand them is perfectly fine.
This is some rat behavior. So you can either buy 3,190 or you can buy 1,240, but all of the skins are 1,300, 900, and 1,100 and 1,800. It's ridiculous. It's rat behavior. Yes, it is. It's ridiculous.
So why is so much focus put on censoring in-game chat? Well, for those of you who know a little history, you might be aware that the short answer is that Riot got sued and lost. In 2018, Riot Games, the owner of Valorant, were sued for sexual misconduct and had to pay out $100 million. Holy shit, that is a lot of money. So while I can understand that there was some foul play at Riot Games, I am a little concerned about Valorant's overly harsh community guidelines. Players just want to play a game where they can interact with people as they would if they were playing a sport in real life, and they should be able to do that. Also, these pro-censorship narratives have a really bad habit of empowering the worst types of people, as everyone publicly in favor of them seems to have something going on that they're trying to cover up.
Okay, could we stop using terms like the wrestler?
No. Free speech.
Oh, okay. I mean, I just think like that's just like so weird and antisocial and like...
Don't care.
Yes, saying retarded is so offensive. Gee, Dean, I really hope you've never been caught saying slurs that people are actually offended by, like the N-word or the F-slur not that long ago, because that would just be horrible.
So the phrase DEI is just the new N-word to bigots?
I guess you would know from firsthand experience. By the way, no one believes this apology, and you don't get to, like, cancel people for words that you were just saying, like, 2 years ago. None of these people actually care about the causes that they're fighting for. It's all just self-enrichment, and it's very apparent that's the case when all these pro-censorship DEI people throw all their principles out the window and commit domestic terrorism by setting Teslas on fire because Elon did things like expose Social Security fraud.
Y'all see this? Clown American. I don't know what this is. Is this paint? Look at this. All on my windshield. My car is destroyed. What the fuck do I have to do with Elon?
Do the radical leftists know that this is technically a hate crime? But the censorship is getting ridiculous, and these people have realized that they've run out of words that people are offended by to cancel, so they've circled back to try and cancel the R word for like the 30th time. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when Lex Friedman gave Destiny a full 30-minute tribunal because he says the word retarded on stream.
So I'll tell you something that bothers me about your streams, not your streams and basically every other stream, is the casual use of the R word.
Oh, the ableism, yeah.
I guess what I'm trying to say here is just because people speak in this kind of way in the gaming world and streams doesn't mean that you don't have the responsibility to sort of stand alone from the crowd.
Oh no, those horrible gamer words. Not that I'm trying to defend Destiny or anything, because he's like a sex offender now, allegedly, but I just want to point out specific tactics that the anti-free speech people use when they're trying to censor everything. Much like Riot will suggest that they just love banter as they are censoring banter, Lex proclaims that he is all for dark humor as he tries to censor dark humor.
I admire great humor, dark humor, wit.
Right. Lex loves dark humor. Look at this dark joke that he showed about a trolley killing a bunch of right-wingers. That's so edgy. It's very safe edgy of you to tell a joke that no one would be offended by because the right doesn't care about this stuff.
Let's say that like 3 years ago, I would have said I'm no longer saying the R word. I'm just going to get rid of that in my vocabulary. Like, is there a chance that today we would be having a conversation about like, why do you call people dumb fucks? Like, is that really appropriate? Like, does this attack at the core of like somebody's like level of intelligence, education, opportunities in life? Like, is that a worthy? You don't think so?
I think that's as the kids say, cope. Okay, like I don't think it'll lead to dumb fuck being canceled 2 years later, unless that word is hurting people's experience.
Yeah, I wouldn't cancel the word dumb fuck unless people were offended by it. Right. I can see why this is the same guy who has a massive auto-block list for his Twitter account that strangely seems to include a lot of people who point out that he didn't graduate from MIT. With that said, there's a whole part of this Valorant situation that I haven't covered yet, which is quite possibly the scariest part of it.
We've been testing Riot voice evaluation systems in North America in English only for a while now. It's still in beta, but it's been working really well so far.
Remember when I said that Riot Games is owned by China? Well, just note that Riot is recording all of your communications in the game, including your voice. Oh, but don't worry, they only save your voice chat if you've been reported. Yeah, I don't believe that at all. Valorant is rated teen by the ESRB, which means that 13-year-olds are playing it, and Riot is recording and storing their conversations. Is this even legal? Did they get their parents' consent to do that? How do we know they aren't selling this data or feeding it into AI? So I think there's a more nefarious narrative going on here with the hate speech and harassment policies, as it's an excuse to enact mass surveillance to help further ensure that nobody passes through any piece of their history without being documented. And if you're wondering why I brought up Lex Friedman, well then, look who's making the same excuses to constantly record people.
I think one of the mechanisms that could fix it is make it super easy for each individual person to analyze all the stupid shit they themselves have said in the past. Like a full recording. Because I think people are just honestly paint a very rosy picture to their own brain of who they have been in the past.
Yeah, of course.
If we can have empathy for the fact that we've said stupid shit, that would give us the ammunition to have empathy for others that are like, okay, yeah, this guy 5 years ago said this. Maybe that doesn't represent who they are any more than stuff I said 5 years ago represents who I am today.
Yeah.
I feel like technology can actually enable that.
Maybe, although you're talking about more recording and more stuff which people are already wary of.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. Have you not been on the internet for the past decade? What actually happens is that recorded history is used by people who are either a protected class or have not been caught on camera yet as a battering ram to cancel people for behaviors that every normal person does, or cancel people for behaviors that were previously acceptable but were randomly deemed not acceptable. Did we not just see that from Dean, trying to censor people for saying retarded when as recently as 2 years ago, he was saying the N-word and the F-slur so much that he was caught multiple times? If you start recording everything, then cry bullies will just use that to abuse people. Also, it's kind of Orwellian and evil.
The goal is to make it so that the people who want to play Val are able to love playing Val.
Yes, but only a specific group of people are allowed to love the game, and you're only allowed to enjoy it in a very specific way. Nothing like claiming to be inclusive while constantly doing things that exclude most of your player base.
Games that first and foremost should be video games are being hijacked by poor leadership and turned into battlegrounds for personal ideologies. It's not about creating great stories or memorable experiences anymore. It's about making a statement, drawing a line in the sand, and daring players to pick a side. The problem today is that things are so polarized. The line is being drawn so deep that we can't enjoy the game unless we perfectly align with the beliefs of its creator.
Right, and the big problem here with the constant push towards censorship is not just the self-censoring that results when companies like Riot are extremely vague with what is acceptable behavior and what is not, but also people have the right to say mean things. That's what free speech is. It's for mean language, offensive language, and criticism. And people have the right to hear mean things that are being said to them. People should hear mean things. How else are they supposed to correct their behavior? Yes, you can be nice, but being nice isn't always effective. Sometimes you have to be strict. Sometimes you need to maintain harsh boundaries, and sometimes you have to say things that will offend people, or they won't become the best version of themselves. Yet Riot will literally ban you for telling people that they are bad at the game, and they aren't the only company that does that. The ability to be mean is incredibly important for people's development, and if you want evidence of that, then look how poorly adjusted people are socially when everyone is nice to them all the time or walks on eggshells around them all the time. They call those people spoiled for a reason. Of course, there is a time and a place for negativity, and it shouldn't be overused, but being happy and positive all the time isn't actually positive. It typically means that things are actually extremely negative and are being covered up or not being talked about. And it's not wrong to use a little appropriately placed negativity to break that cycle. Anyway, thanks for watching. Follow me on Twitter, and I'll see you in the next video.